Hello, everyone. My name is Moish Steigman, and I am the Mindful Rabbi. And we are here today to talk about whether or not to blow shofar on Shabbat when it falls on Rosh Hashanah. Before we do that, we're going to take a moment to sound the shofar. As you might know, in the weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, it is a custom every single day to sound the shofar in preparation for Rosh Hashanah and the high holidays. The sound of the shofar being an urgent call to action for us to do teshuvah, for us to engage in the process of repenting and atoning for our misdeeds and trying to really be a better version of ourselves. Thank you again for joining. And our question once again today is, should we sound the shofar when Shabbat falls on Rosh Hashanah? And this is an incredibly practical question for this upcoming Jewish year, 5784, which begins on Friday night, September 15th, 2023, and continues on Saturday and Sunday, September 16th and 17th, 2023, because the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat. And so we need to ask the question, why might we withhold from sounding the shofar? And why might we choose to sound the shofar? One quick note, this video is not intended to be proscriptive. I am not here to try to tell any individual and certainly any community what they should do. Every community, every rabbi, every ritual committee, every chavurah, everything is going to come up with its own decision and its own response. I just want to lay out my thought process and what my practice is going to be, not only for me, but for also Ohel Ayala, where I have the opportunity and the joy, privilege, and pleasure of leading high holiday services this year. So to fully appreciate the conversation about whether or not to sound the shofar, there are really two questions to consider. One, what are the halachic, what are the Jewish legal factors to consider? Two, if by Jewish law, we believe it might be permissible to sound the shofar when Shabbat falls on Rosh Hashanah, should we do it anyway? Just to jump to the end, for me and for Ohel Ayala, the answer to those questions is going to be yes. I do believe it is permissible for us to sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and I believe it is appropriate for our Ohel Ayala community to hear the sound of the shofar on Shabbat Rosh Hashanah. So let's unpack this question. First of all, according to halacha, according to Jewish law, is it even permissible? There are three primary factors that we need to consider. One is Shema Yitakein, one is carrying, and one is Jewish life after the destruction of the Second Temple. First, Shema Yitakein. According to the rabbis, and according to their understanding of Shabbat laws, we are not allowed to fix something that is broken on Shabbat. So we're all sitting here, we're having a wonderful Shabbos meal together, I'm sitting on my chair and the chair breaks. I am prohibited from fixing that chair on Shabbat. Similarly, if I am playing a musical instrument, maybe I'm playing a wind instrument and I have a reed, maybe I'm playing a guitar or a violin and a string breaks, I am prohibited from repairing that instrument on Shabbat. And the rabbis are very, very cautious. They do not want to put anyone in any position where they might be tempted to violate a Jewish law. And so what the rabbis do is, in part, they make it a prohibition to play musical instruments on Shabbat, lest anyone be tempted to fix it. Right? Imagine I'm playing guitar and we're singing and we're having some beautiful Shabbat melodies and one of my strings break. The temptation to repair that string is going to be in many ways overwhelming. I might not have the self-control or the self-discipline not to look around, to run around into an office or a back room, quickly fix the string, and then continue playing. So rather than put me in that position, the rabbis say, look, don't play musical instruments at all, and you'll never have to worry about fixing it. For me, I'm not too worried about Shema Yitaken for two reasons. First of all, when it comes to a shofar, I have no idea how to fix it. If I'm sounding the shofar and I drop it and it cracks and it breaks and it becomes a not kosher shofar, not fit for Rosh Hashanah use, I have no idea. I don't even have the technical skill or the materials to fix it. But even if I do, if I am part of a community and the community knows that the standard is not to fix it, I'm not so worried in front of everybody about my temptation to fix. Probably I'm more worried about everyone looking at me and saying, Rabbi, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be fixing that. So I don't think that Shema Yitaken needs to prohibit us from sounding the shofar. 2, a prohibition against carrying. On Shabbat, we are not supposed to carry items from a public space to a private space, or vice versa, nor are we supposed to carry items that have no use on Shabbat. I think we're already talking about whether or not a shofar has use on Shabbat, but in terms of carrying, first of all, let's be honest, we carry things anyway. We carry our talit, we carry a bag, we carry we carry a stroller, we do already carry things. So for us to prohibit carrying one thing when we're already somewhat lax on carrying other things doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But even if we want to be strict about carrying something that is for a ritual public use, the solution is very simple. And in my cases, it's true. I have the shofar in my office or in the building. It's already there before Rosh Hashanah and it is staying there through Rosh Hashanah. So there's no issue of transferring the carry from a private to a public space. The third consideration is the destruction of the Second Temple. And according to the rabbis, after the destruction of the Second Temple, a genuinely cataclysmic event in Jewish life, theology, practice, spirituality. After the destruction of the temple, we reduce our joy. And one of the great symbols of joy in Judaism is music. And so we reduce our joy. And in the first generation after the destruction of the temple, the rabbis were so stringent about reducing their joy that they wouldn't even play music at a wedding. And certainly some of those customs, as we have moved 1 and 2 millennia past the destruction of the Second Temple, have fallen away. And certainly in our generation, when Israel is a country once again, we have reason to increase our joy. So these are the 3 primary halachic prohibitions against sounding the shofar. Shema Yitaken, lest we repair it, carrying from a public to a private place, and a reduction in our joy. I don't think any of those are necessarily compelling enough to outweigh the value added of sounding the shofar. There's also a MacroRobertic Principle that we do not change a custom that's been in place for a long time unless we have an overwhelming reason to do it. I believe that there actually is an overwhelming reason to sound the shofar on Shabbat, which is what I'm going to share in a moment. But I also acknowledge that I don't take lightly that if a custom has been in place for a long time, we simply wantonly and willy-nilly don't want to overturn or undo that custom. So sociologically, why do I believe that it is important to sound the shofar on Shabbat, on Rosh Hashanah? I'll give a couple of reasons. First of all, if we go back to the days of the temple before the destruction of the Second Temple, we even learn in the Torah, and we certainly learn in the Psalms, that musical instruments, and specifically including the shofar, we hear it in Psalm 150, which we sing every single day. Hallelujah, hallelujah. We sing in Psalm 150 that musical instruments, and specifically the shofar, were part of our worship service in the temple every single day, including Shabbat. and including high holidays. And indeed, in the Torah itself, Rosh Hashanah is not called Rosh Hashanah. It is referred to as Yom Teruah, the day of the sounding of the shofar. And so at its core, the shofar is central to Rosh Hashanah practice. We also have another consideration, which is when we think about Rosh Hashanah, it's hard to imagine Rosh Hashanah without the piercing sound of the shofar. The blasts that wake us up, that change not only our attitude toward the day, but our dullness of the moment. It wakes us up. It reminds us why we're there, what we're doing at Rosh Hashanah service, what our call to action is. And I will add one more thing, that the reality is in 2023, that many Jews do not go to services or hear the sound of the shofar in the month leading up to Rosh Hashanah. And there are some Jews who are only going to go to one day of high holiday services. In some communities, there are only one day of services, and in other communities where there are two, Jews might only choose to go to one. I think it would not only be remiss, but also negligent for me and for Ohel Ayala not to give the opportunity to everyone to hear the sound of the shofar throughout Rosh Hashanah. And so for these reasons, I am overwhelmed, and I believe that it is important for us to hear the sound of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. It is the hallmark of Rosh Hashanah from its origin and from its inception. It is the clear clarion reminder of what we need to do for ourselves and our community today and for the 10 days forward. And if we don't sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah Shabbat, there will be a great number of Jews who otherwise would want to hear the shofar, who will miss out on that opportunity. And so for these reasons, I do not believe that the halachic traditional reasons are so binding and overwhelming as to keep the prohibition in place. And I believe that all of these sociological and modern day realities are enough to put aside the long-standing tradition of not blowing the shofar on Shabbat. And for those reasons, on a personal level, I will sound the shofar. And also for the Ohel Ayala community, we will be hearing the call of the shofar as part of our Shabbat high holiday services. As always, if you have any questions, if you have any reflections, other ideas, other things that you believe should be taken into consideration, please send me an email, please reach out, and or please comment in the video below. Once again, my name is Moshe Steigman. I am the Mindful Rabbi, and may this be a call for all of us to have a Shana Tova Umtuka, a happy, healthy, sweet, and meaningful new year. Shana Tova.